Both are furnished, as were the other rooms, with very ordinary furniture which came from the Princess Eliza, Grand Duchess of Tuscany. The furniture in the salon was light blue. The seat of the sofa had so little stuffing that one could feel the cross pieces and the straps. The mantelpiece was of white marble and was semicircular in shape. The upper part or shelf was supported by two fluted columns. This mantelpiece was of a beautiful model. On a console opposite it was a fine bust by Canova. It was the Princess Pauline. I recollect that the candelabra in the salon were wood painted to represent bronze, ornamented by a few gildings, as they used the ends of candles from economy. Whoever was on duty had to be careful not to let them burn down to the end in order that the candelabra might not catch fire. The emperor thought that the walls of the dining room and salon were too bare. The walls of all these rooms were painted in fresco after the Italian fashion, that is to say, with the border and an elegant painting in a large panel over the doors, and saw fit to frame in black wooden frames a number of engravings which he had taken out of a large work in Egypt. The island was so poor in glass that it was necessary to put pieces over each engraving. The bathroom was decorated with little pictures, colored Italian engravings on a black ground, representing the principal pagan divinities as they are described in Ovid. The furniture of this room was composed of some chairs and a wooden bathtub in the shape of our wine vats. The library, which also served as an office, contained considerable numbers of volumes, which was increased later. The emperor did not allow anyone to go into the library. Nobody was accepted except Monsieur Nadier, his secretary, and the floor polisher. The bedroom, though very simple in its furnishing, was nice enough. It was supplied with everything necessary. Running the whole length of the house on the garden side was a long walk shaded against the rays of the sun by an awning of the same length. In the morning, when the weather was fine, this awning was unrolled so that the emperor might walk in the shade, and it had at the same time the advantage of preserving his majesty's room from too great heat. In the eastern part of the garden, on two pilasters which served as the entrance to the little garden, there were two alabaster vases, rather dark, in which lights were placed when night came. The emperor liked this soft light, as the temperature was pleasantest during the evening. He often dined on this walk. They used to place two little alabaster vases in which were the candles on the table to light it. This had the advantage of not tiring the eyes and also protecting the light from the wind. Before the arrival of the Princess Pauline, a number of cases of furniture, porcelain, glass, and an infinite quantity of pretty useless things had been unloaded at the port and transported to the palace. The emperor, curious to see what these cases contained and wishing to be the first to see them, had them open before him. When the box contained porcelains, glass, or bronzes, he would have the pieces taken out one by one, have them handed to him, amuse himself by taking off their wrappings, and after having looked at them and examined them on every side, he would place them on a table or some other piece of furniture within his reach. This form of distraction pleased him so much that not a box was opened unless he was present. When the emperor knew the arrival of the princess, his sister, he made all the arrangements necessary to receive her. The rooms in the upper story, which were designed for her and which had been decorated and almost furnished, were put in order. The emperor himself saw to everything as soon as the ship which carried his majesty's sister entered the port and had anchored. The artillery of the place saluted the princess. The troops, I think, were under arms during her landing. As soon as her carriage was ashore, she got into it and drove to the palace. When I arrived, Madame Mère was already settled at Portoferraio. She occupied a house in a street near the palace. A short time after the arrival of the Princess Pauline, the emperor's guard was increased by a detachment of mounted Polish lancers. These men, after accompanying the empress, had, it was reported, received orders to go to the island of Elba. I think that they gave themselves this order. There were a considerable number of officers among them. Consequently, the cavalry, which had before that time been composed of only a few Mamelukes, was considerably more numerous. But as there was little forage in the island, about half the men were dismounted and their horses sold. It was a matter of economy. 15 or 20 mounted men were enough to furnish the escorts, which were composed of only 4 or 5 men. During the emperor's stay in the island of Elba, Corsican or Italian officers frequently arrived asking for employment. Several entered the Corsican battalion. The emperor gave the others others a pension which allowed them to live. Among these officers there was a Frenchman named Roule, who had been in the chasseurs of the guard when that body was formed, and I think he had even been one of the guides in Egypt. Since then, he had served in the Carabiners. He held the rank of chef d'escadron. This fine fellow was very devoted, but he had no fortune but his sword. The emperor, who had known him, attached him to his person and made him his first aide-de-camp and appointed him commandant of his escort. Monsieur Roule always accompanied him on his rides.